You ready? All right, welcome y'all to the Justice and Public Safety meeting. Let's see, order of business. All right, committee to approve the minutes for January 28, 2026 Justice and Public Safety Committee meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the January 28 minutes as submitted.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're gonna have a review and approval of the EMS ordinance. Who's presenting?
I guess so I don't have anything formal to present. We've talked about this a couple times. To this point, I haven't received any questions or kind of requested changes. So the form that you still have in front of you is the same as it was at our last meeting. So really would welcome any feedback or questions, or if there's anything that I can expound upon as far as the purpose and intention of any sections of the ordinance, but even the ordinance in general. I can do that, but I believe at this point, the next step is ready to, barring any changes, advance this to council when the committee's ready. So, any questions or anything that you'd like me to cover on that, but as it stands, nothing has been changed since our last meeting with what we provided.
I wrote down a few. You got any?
No?
Yeah, I was wondering, what does it do and how much do you think this will help in servicing our residents?
Well, it's foundational, really. This puts in place a structure that has never existed before. So whereas we operated off of contracts, they've been contracts for service related to either the number of units. It's never dictated where these units were located. It has put in some response time standards. The most recent contracts for service actually have some additional data reporting requirements in them. So this formalizes that across the entire county for every provider, current or hypothetically future providers as well. And it establishes those two components that we feel, myself, emergency management, so Chuck and Malcolm helping with this, we feel are very key to the county taking control of the oversight and really overall direction and compliance of the EMS system as a whole, not just any specific provider. So the quality review piece of it is very important because, when the call comes into 911 until they go on scene, that's only a very small portion of the call. So to this point, the only data that we really capture is really from the time the 911 call is made until they go on scene. A little bit related to when they're released back into the 911 system. But there's no quality component to it, so we don't track and we have really no clue what the patient outcomes are, what's the level of care that they're receiving, the interventions that are being made, and how are we improving that. This formally establishes that. Then it also establishes an operational group that allows us to evaluate the system needs, measuring kind of the response times, but where's the growth at? Where do we need additional units? Formalizes a process for us to solicit additional units into the system from any provider. Our existing providers are naturally what the preference is, but hypothetically in the future for any provider that doesn't exist in the county today, this defines a process for that. So it's us taking more of a oversight role and guiding the direction of the EMS system versus really the organic growth that has happened ever since the 1980s when this contract was put in, well, the first contract, I should say, was put into place.
Yeah, and I guess basically that'll probably be added to the budget or whatever added. How will we do that?
Yes, it will grow. So there is a budget request. We'll talk about that at the retreat for a position because again, it's more oversight and more involvement than we've ever had before. So it can't be as passive as it's been in the past. It has to be a very active position, working with them on a daily basis. So we'll talk about that this weekend, but largely we have a lot of the tools already in place, but as this grows, Some of the budgeting components may be additional staff, medical direction, some of the equipment that we choose to do internally, will make its way in eventually, but outside of the position, there's no real budget impact immediately.
Good. All right, so you need a motion to forward it on to council.
Just one confirmation, I'll make a motion, but nothing's been edited since our last meeting.
Yeah,
It's in the document. Yeah, I didn't think so. Just making sure.
And
Okay.
I may have said it, but just so you're aware, we met with both Piedmont and Atrium with the recent acquisition of River Hills, that covered all of that. And we walked through this with them every step of it, answered their questions. We did make some minor tweaks at the very beginning when we started discussing this with them, things that they pointed out or anything that they needed some clarification on. How does this function related to their contracts they have in place? So we've had a lot of meeting and discussion on that with them. So this is not going to be something that they haven't heard about. We definitely vetted it through them and discussed it.
How'd they feel?
Particularly with them being our existing providers, they feel like it really does also provide them some protections. They understand the oversight that we're trying to establish. But again, having a formal process that we will solicit additional providers, they kind of know what the process is going to be. It's not just going to be handled on one static point in time of, someone comes and makes a good presentation. There has to be a defined need. There's an assessment that they go through, and there's requirements that they have to meet in order for them to be considered to bid on any future expansions. So I think, and the way that we explained it to them was that this protects your model as well and gives us the ability to expand in a strategic and more guided path. So I'm sure there was a little bit of hesitation at first, but they've been supportive.
Yeah.
Laura, quick question for you. To adopt this, for county council to adopt this, what process are we going to go through? Do we go through a 3 reading, or this is a 3 reading process as we ordinarily do?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, so make a motion to have staff present the MS ordinance to York County Council so that we can go through our normal 3 reading process to approve or disapprove the proposed ordinance.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next, let's see, a follow-up discussion regarding boards and commission members' conduct. Ms. Laura.
Am I leading off this one?
I can leave it.
I have one question, only one.
Certainly.
You want to just hear the questions, or do you want to present anything before we operate through it?
I am late to the game on this one, so I welcome the questions first.
Well, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and this is one of those things like everything else. Once we start using it, we'll say, why did we ever vote on that, approve that? And we'll have to go through and amend something. But number 8, relationship with staff and non-interference. It's in real clear, and I think we need to be clear, especially for county council, to know when we have questions for certain departments, what's the protocol to communicate? Do you go directly to the assistant county manager over that department reports up to? What's the procedure here?
So in this particular question, I think I would defer to David,
Okay?
at least initially.
Yeah, so what this is actually a compilation of is kind of just some benchmarking and pulling some examples of several code of conduct ordinances that relate to boards, commissions, councils, not just in South Carolina, but around the region, so North Carolina, Georgia as well. So any piece in here, there may not be a specific intent behind that. So I think as the discussion furthers, that's a question to answer and define better in here.
Okay.
To define that role. I don't think this calls out a specific process that you're asking, but that would be a component that I think should be defined in here to know a process.
Yeah, county council's woven into this though.
It is.
This code of conduct
Absolutely.
for us as well, so.
Correct.
To me, the one item that has stood out the most maybe with how we communicate with staff members, I think that should be clarified. If we're expected to go to an assistant county manager, to county manager with their questions and let them go down. I mean, I've got somebody right now that's reached out to me and I haven't responded to the email. It's a budget request potentially, and I probably shouldn't be communicating with them. I should be communicating with the direct report. Kevin, as we talked about earlier before the meeting started.
Yeah, I think as a general rule of thumb, kind of what you're saying is probably the most appropriate method.
Yeah.
So that it can be handled in, you know, where management doesn't find out through the grapevine and
Yeah.
ancillary. So I think what you're saying would be the appropriate recommendation.
Well, and it speaks to it in here that it puts that staff member in a bad spot. I mean, I'm just trying to listen to this staff member in this situation. I think I'm going to create a problem if I continue to communicate on this. It needs to go up the channel.
Sure.
And then,
And I would say if, you know, if I'm looking at this document, I understand, I think the question is, it doesn't actually say what the process is.
Correct.
For county
I
council.
think we need to tighten it up.
And so, just based on history and experience and practice, I would say if, currently, if you have that question and there's nothing saying this is what county management recommends, then the rule of thumb would be certainly county manager, and he can delegate to whomever he needs. And if you want to include an assistant county manager, if you know which one oversees that department, or the assistant
Or
county
legal.
manager and the manager,
Or legal.
and or legal,
Maybe it's okay
absolutely.
for, conversation directly with legal on that. That's the only thing I noticed in here that I felt like we need to tighten up.
Tim, it is, if you remember, a couple of years ago, it was brought up, and if we're doing something, we discussed about trying to make certain boards line up with when the council term of the council person that picks them, you know. Would that be something we could look at it this time to do? Because, you know, some people getting on council and somebody else is already stuck on there. You remember when we talked about that?
I wrote it down to bring it up with what happened with Annie Litton's appointment, but I chose not to do it.
So that is a recommendation that was made out of the JPS that's
Yeah.
still out there that could be included as consideration.
Why don't we add that to our next agenda and let's discuss that, because I was gonna, I just didn't feel like it was the right time to bring it up, considering what was going on. I definitely didn't want to do it the night we voted. But I'm in agreement with you.
And to make sure I'm clear, Tommy, you're saying the term limits for appointments to boards and commissions, that those line up with the
Yeah, but
appointing body's
when,
term?
yeah,
Well,
More specifically, what I'm agreeing with you on is this, though, that when a council member joins county council, I personally, I'd like, because I felt like I needed to do this when I came on, it would have been very good. I could have reappointed who was already serving for my district
I'll pick
6,
someone else.
or I could have picked someone else to go
Yeah.
before finance and operations.
But what we need to also discuss when we discuss about this, David, is the certain boards like F&O, Board of Zoning Appeals, whatnot. You know, we get a list of names and then we get a brief summary. It necessarily should not. You know how everybody got saying, well, that's who I want. But why are we reading over these applications and trying to pick and choose the best fit if we're just gonna make it, or we're just gonna make it, the council person gets to pick whoever they want to put on there? You get what I'm saying? So why are we reading over all their,
Are you asking why they have to go through F&O?
well, in a way, because, I mean, if we're three sitting there trying to make a decision and we're gonna look at the applications for the board member, but we feel obligated to put whoever the person of that district what's on there, why we even doing any of that? You get what I'm saying?
Well, and I think what the comment was made last time was the F and O receiving the applications and make a recommendation. Is that not the correct process for which a recommendation should be made to council? I think that kind of is the base of what you're saying is what is the purpose of F and O if that's not going to be the process?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, like the ED board, that didn't go through F&I. Different process.
Yeah,
I don't know why it went that way.
yeah. I mean, we got some that I can just pick Sam Hill and throw on there, but then we have some that we have to, there's no need in them giving us these applications and filling out things if we're just gonna make it automatically, it's whoever, any of us want.
Yes, it did go through F&O, I apologize, but it was our appointments that went through F&O.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of, this is what Tommy's talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, if we ain't gonna sit there and decide who is the best fit on them, we automatically gonna put, whether it's somebody I want or anybody else, we don't feel they're the right one.
So I think what you're saying is balancing.
Is it gonna be just automatically the council person gets to decide who they want on
Right, so-
every
so
board, or?
Balancing what the recommendation is of the council person of that district with what the F and O recommends,
Yeah,
what is the actual answer and what is that process?
yeah, we need to figure that out, cause I mean, this has happened several times.
Well, the process, just to be completely transparent, if you really want your person appointed, you gotta talk to 3 members of F&O and get them to agree to vote for the person that you want to be submitted to council to be voted on.
Yeah.
You need to get 2 to 3 at least.
And then we having them fill out all this stuff on the application to see why they fit that the best, and then, needing us looking at all that if we're just going, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, that applies to everybody on council.
And I'm sure the public would probably like for it to stay the way it is, and that is, if I put an appointment up and somebody else would like to run for that spot or submit their application to that spot, I understand that. But
Well, then one of
we
the,
weren't trying to appoint people to represent you. And I, for one, as a council member, I don't think there's a person I've appointed that I don't reach out to anybody and say, hey, I need you.
Well, I
to
mean,
do
that's
this.
right, because once we put them on there, we ain't supposed
That's
to.
just the way I do it, but, so there's no political gain or loss for me. I mean, I'm expecting them to do a good job and represent me well. I kind of like to appoint my person personally and then let them lead.
Well, I mean, I would too, but, I mean,
Which is the appropriate practice.
yes.
Say that again?
Which is the appropriate practice. Especially when you're talking about something like the Board of Zoning Appeals or Planning Commission and Board of Zoning Appeals, something that is specifically a quasi-judicial body. So in those situations, I would say it's absolutely recommended and advised. You appoint those persons, and then those folks are tasked with sitting there and being independent, and hearing what's before them.
Yeah. So that's separate than this that we're talking about tonight, but that would be good to have on the agenda for our next meeting, something like for it to be. And we've already talked about it, so it's just bringing it back.
And I think one of the other things that you mentioned was a freezing period between primaries and general election or something like that, so that
Yeah.
needs to be talked about again as well.
Yeah, I can go back.
But I mean, you see my point, we're sitting there reading over applications and this and that, but then,
Right.
What David's talking about now is the freezing, I think what you're saying is a period leading up to the person coming on. There are no appointments made in that district, let's say from
Right, a time
July
period,
1st
yeah.
until 12/31, there are no appointments.
That was one of the recommendations that was
Yeah,
made
Yeah,
last
exactly.
time.
I remember that.
Yeah.
but I mean, my point is though, is other than we, instead of using the word we're appointing them, the council members appointing it, and we're just using that as the body instead to go on before council.
For the approval.
Yeah, instead of
I think that's the question.
choosing, I mean,
That's the question that has to be decided on.
yeah.
And for the record, I want to say this real quick, that one instance that happened recently, I was not voting necessarily against the individual. I was voting in support of the council member that wanted their person appointed. Had nothing to do with the individual.
Yeah. But
so I don't
what
know
I'm
what
trying
you
to
do
say
to
is
talk to
though,
Yeah.
is we shouldn't be looking over all these applications and stuff
Mhm.
if we're just gonna automatically pick that person.
Well, let's put this on
As
the
a-
agenda to discuss this.
Yeah, as a group, if we're sitting here looking at these applications and we decide this one's got a better background to be, that's where I'm, you know, if we're gonna make it, it's just automatically who the council person wants, are we actually gonna sit there and look at applications and see in the group of three, who we going to put? You know, let the council person pick all the people that he wants in the application process. But if there's more than one, I mean, I have one that's coming up, it's gonna be 11 different people applying. So, just make that clear.
The two things I want to make sure we don't gloss over, because they're, again, with these just being benchmarks, they're not recommendations that I think we have to put in there. But the 11 and 12, the complaint process and enforcement mechanism,
Mhm.
you know, we largely don't have anything of that nature right now. And then second, probably the more controversial one, are sanctions and corrective measures. You know, that's something that I could see being contentious or controversial, so I think that needs to be given specific consideration in this. If you're gonna, you know, again, not making a recommendation that you do that, but you need to think about, is that how you want to move forward with an enforcement mechanism and potential sanctioning method as you consider this. So I don't want to gloss over that. I want to make sure that I point that out, that you need to think about that.
Yeah.
If you're going to approach that or not.
Yeah, because in the moment when you're thinking about sanctioning or censuring someone, it's easy to say you're gonna do it and you're gonna do it, you know, what exactly does it mean?
Well,
And that's-
and pieces of that are also, I mean, I don't want to, Laura could probably give more about this, but that also goes, particularly when we're talking about sanctioning someone, there is state law that governs how that happens, particularly at the council level. So, you know, we would need to give consideration to that process as well.
And I think when you start talking about anything that deals with the State Ethics Commission, certainly that's something we can drill down on in the county attorney's office, but that is a delicate area, and there is a process already spelled out for how to make complaints that would go to the State Ethics Commission. So certainly that would be nuanced language, because in no way do you want to interfere or in any way look like you are impeding or standing in the way of that process.
Yeah.
And the two primary things, just to, I guess, bounce off what David's saying, is that you all have requested essentially that we draft an ordinance, and there are two primary points that you want addressed in it, one of which is public decorum, or what is appropriate public decorum for board or commission members who are appointed by county council, and for cause removal of appointees by county council. If there are any other major items that you all would want addressed in that ordinance, just let me know what those are. Be happy to include those. We plan to have that draft ordinance ready for the second March meeting.
Was y'all able to find what any other counties do as far as any other?
Help me a little bit with that question. What do you mean specifically?
How other counties have looked in and what they put in place as far as Cause I know down at the association, I was telling David, I checked with their lawyer down there, and it doesn't really seem to be a lot of information on it.
There is not a lot of information on it. I glanced earlier today at a couple of places where they seem to have language addressing conduct of board or commission members, but it really was just a reference back to the state statute dealing with the term limits of members and things like that. It's not to say that it can't be done. Michael and I both kind of looked at this issue, and certainly can pass an ordinance addressing things the county council would consider to be a category that would warrant for cause removal. And certainly county council has the prerogative to act where a person is behaving inappropriately in public. And I think that goes for county council meetings in general. If those are disruptive or impeding the business of that meeting, almost anywhere, that's grounds for removal from the meeting. So it's things like that, and the fact that that person's been appointed and a representative of a body that's appointed by county council. And then taking into account, if you're dealing with something like something someone is just saying in public, well, then certainly we have to look at that in terms of First Amendment and everything else. So you have to get into some nuanced areas when you're dealing with even for cause removal.
Yeah, I'm finding that out. There's a fine line between character assassination and freedom of right to speak.
There's always a fine line.
So I guess the question is, you know, going back to Laura's point, is there anything else that maybe isn't covered in here, or what she's already mentioned, that you were requesting us to look at or consider?
Yeah, I'll say one more then. Conflict of interest. You know, I don't struggle with this one because I don't care if my mother's coming to council to ask for something. I think I'm gonna be pretty consistent in making a decision. But if you're from York County, you've been here your entire life, and I have, and Tommy has, and other people on council have too, you know a lot of the people that are coming before us for action, right? And so it's in here about conflicts of interest, but where do you draw the line? I mean, I've asked Michael a couple of times, I just want to make sure that if it came up, but, you know, where do you draw the line?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Well, yeah, because I've wondered about that, seeing that I work on a lot of
Yep.
different contractors that would do their equipment and stuff. And if, you know, should you recluse yourself just because you do work for them?
I think you have the, you know, one clear line is there a direct financial benefit to you as a council member in casting a vote on something, right? And then outside of those clear lines, you have all of the gray area, which is I'm recusing myself because, not because I'm going to be biased in this decision, but because I know this person or have this certain relationship with this person, this is my mother, and I don't want to give even the appearance of impropriety. Happy to look at that if y'all want some examples of some different things. And
Yeah, that would be, because I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of these people that we have.
And I believe that one is one that's also covered in the state ethics
Yes.
as well. Because they have certain thresholds kind of defined in the state ethics, so, you know, making sure we don't run afoul of what they've already put in
Yeah,
place.
I had one come up during the impact fee, and I reached out to the Ethics Commission, shared everything, and they gave me an opinion. But I don't do that always. Anyway, that's a tough one, that's a great one, I think it's really great. But that's, I won't say what I was gonna say, but it's great to me. All right. So this is just a follow-up discussion. Are you looking for action on this to go to council or what?
I think we've got some direction. I don't think there's any specific action to take right now.
Okay.
No, not right now. I think we're planning on, I think it's the March 16th meeting, having a draft ordinance in advance of that.
Okay.
All right. Now we're down to our public comments section. Everybody, 2 minutes apiece. We got 10 minutes worth of them. Look at the boss sit there. Move on, the camera wants to go home. All right, we ain't got anything for executive session.
Yes, sir. Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sir.